ASMR Quick Snap Podcast. The beard on the microphone. You guys want to see my dogs fighting? That could be on there. We're not going to use that, right? That was a joke.
Okay, welcome to the episode 6 of the Quick Snap Podcast. David, thank you for your ASMR. Is that the right way, or is it the other way around?
Dude, people make a lot of money doing that stuff, Brian.
With the
people
beard,
make a lot of money doing that stuff.
That is true. Putting the beard on the microphone. First and foremost, I think what people probably really want to know, and we have you here exclusively as the co-host of the show, is how are you feeling? I hate to say it, but I was flipping through, we talked about Red Zone last week. I'm watching the Red Zone, waiting for some other games to finish up. I switch over to the Patriots broadcast, and I see my teammate and co-host on the sideline walking into the locker room. So just wanted to check in on you, see how you're feeling today. Obviously, that was happened so quick in the game the other day. Just you on your status and how you're feeling.
Yeah, first of all, it's frustrating. Being hurt is a very frustrating thing, and especially when you want to be out there playing, and as a player, sometimes you have to make decisions if you being out there is the best thing, for the team sometimes, and if you can perform. And I'm not. That's one thing I thought Bill always did a good job of is, there was a lot of call them rules with Bill, and sometimes he's kind of like having a parent when they have a bunch of rules. Well, sometimes that's to protect you. And we always talked, right? Like you come out and before the season and say, I'm going to, have a 3,000 yard receiving year. And then something happens or you get hurt or you don't have a great year. And now you look kind of like an, asshole. So, and kind of the same with injuries, you don't want to say things and, I'm feeling great. I'm ready to go. And then something happens and you're not. So, just try to take it day by day, obviously. Some stuff I got to try to figure out here and, see what I can do to be the best player I can be, on Sunday. That's a big thing. I think anybody can go out there and play. Like, it's not a question of that, but it's trying to be effective and be, a player. And I think that's kind of some maybe of the human aspect of it more than, just the football player is, you want to be the best you can be. And, making sure you can try to do that. And, just trying to take it day by day right now, get some things weighed out and, going to try to get better as quick as I can and see, where things go, or what has to go. So just trying to figure all that stuff out. It's super frustrating, man. I've, been hurt throughout my career at times and there's some things, I've had some medical things that you can't really control. And that's one thing. And then, for the most part, I've been pretty healthy football wise, and, so just trying to, like I said, take it day by day, see how I feel, see what I can improve and, go from there.
Yeah, I think the frustration part of when you're injured, right? That's they take you back to the locker room. You're not really sure what's going to happen. Obviously, I've had some major injuries, and you sit in that locker room, and you probably got a trainer or a doctor with you, but a million things are running through your mind. But frustration's one of them because you've put in so much work. You don't want to see your team out there playing without you. But it kind of hits you, right? Like it's like, everyone used to tell me NFL not for long. Well, I lasted 15 years, so that wasn't the case for me. But there was a lot of times throughout those 15 years where you deal with injury and it makes you wonder, like, all right, what does this mean?
Yeah, and I think too the hard part is on Sunday, right? Like unless you break a bone,
tear a ligament,
like bad ligament, or concussion, like there's so much unknown because you got to get MRIs, you got to talk to doctors, and so, that's kind of like, and then obviously, you get 2 hours of sleep, Sunday night, you're up there Monday morning, after landing MRI machine. And then, you go talk to, doctors, talk to other doctors, and you're just trying to put everything together, and put it all together. And, you're not in the right frame of mindset because you're, like I said, you're going off 2 hours of sleep. You're pissed off, you know, and so you're just trying to, you know, and then you get some news Monday, whether you like the news or not, you got to get news. And so it's a lot. And so, you know, but this morning, actually, I went in there, worked out a little bit, you know, started trying to get better. But I actually went to Hasbro Children's Hospital this morning. And, you know, after all that,
Puts things in perspective.
yeah, it does, Brian, you know, and, that's where Worth was when, you know, he was sick. So it was, you know, really important. You know, I wanted to try to go down there and you know, see kids and, you know, that are going through things. And so we went down with a couple guys this morning. And like I said, you know, I think that it's good in times to do something like that in times like this. And remember that there's a lot more out there than football, and there's a lot, whatever you're feeling, there's a lot of people in a lot worse shoes than, you know, how you are. And, you know, so it was a great morning for me personally to do that. And it was really important for me to, you know, do that because like I said, you know, that's where we spent whatever it was a week this summer with Worth. So it was important. I wanted to go down there and repay my time as a thank you. And, you know, I think always those hospital visits, I know you've done them, and obviously it's great for the kids and that's why you're there. But now being in the shoes we are as parents,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's great for them too, you know, and like sometimes, you know, you go to see kids and they don't watch sports necessarily, you know, like obviously some of the teenagers and things like that, but the little kids, you know, but to see the parents and, you know, cause they're going through a lot too. And, you know, maybe it's just as good as for them than it is the kids sometimes. So, you know, I think that's kind of been a cool perspective for me now being a parent.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that was always a big thing. Donna, I
Yeah,
want to make
Donna's
sure
the
I say her
best,
name
man.
right. Donna Spigarello, she would always have those opportunities for us. And, you know, they dropped off a little bit during the COVID years, but great to see you guys, you know, back and doing those things. Cause like you said, when your own child's there, you know, puts all those things in perspective. And I think when you're in a position as a NFL player to go and bring some joy to people who are going through tough times, and even like you said, for you, you're going through some times that you're dealing with an issue, and you realize like, and that's the one thing too. I think you realize like the game's going to continue to be played. The
Hmm.
sun's going to come up the next day, win, lose, injury, healthy, whatever it may be. And sometimes, you know, throughout your career, you take a step back and realize like we're so privileged to do what we do, but there is
Yeah.
an end date at some point for all of us, whenever that may be. And so it kind of, in that same perspective, makes you soak it up that much more. And I remember coming back to the Patriots, and you talked about it with Hunter, that game in Pittsburgh, and I remember that atmosphere and just being so thankful that I was back with the Patriots and in an organization that I saw things the same way, and we won this incredible game, and just overcome with the emotion of it all, and just feeling so much gratitude for that situation. And I think through it all, no matter the ups and downs, how lucky we are to do what we do, and to kind of share that, you know, joy with other people is a huge thing, of a huge way of giving back.
Yeah. And on that subject, next Monday night is my bowling event, Strikes for Tykes.
Let's go.
Supporting BMC. You coming, Brian?
Of course.
Danny, you coming?
Do I get the invite?
Yeah, you get like a pity invite,
It's
Danny.
mandatory invite. You have to be there.
I'm there. I'm there.
It's Monday Night Kings. It goes great cause for BMC and all the work they do, and it's something really cool because I remember when it was the Mayo Bowl, you know,
Mayo
and
Bowl. That's right. I used to
Mayo
go to that.
Bowl, and yeah, I used to go to that, and then it became the McCourty Bowl, and now it's,
Mayo Bowl.
you know, now it's my bowl, and so kind of full circle thing. I did it last year. It was we had a great event, Kings and Seaport. So that's next Monday night. So anyone that is listening and wants to go, it's usually on my Instagram page, and you know, it supports a great cause with BMC, and you know, hopefully have a lot of guys there, and it's usually just a great night. I don't know how much bowling I'm going to be doing with this shoulder, but I don't know if that's on the
That's a
rehab
pretty
plan. But
good list of guys to be there with when you talk about like Patriots legends, and for you to get the torch passed to you and run that. I think that speaks to not only the player you are, but the person you are, because obviously Devin and Jerod, great players, but also just even better people that,
yeah,
you know,
no,
even Devin was,
it was funny because Mackenzie, like before they asked me, she was like, "I wonder who's going to take over the bowling thing," you know, and like And then they literally called me like the next week, and they asked me if I wanted to do it, and I was like, heck yeah! Like, been going to this my whole career and always loved it.
Yep.
So it's
That's
been super
awesome.
fun, super something I'm excited to always being a part of. And so that's next Monday night.
All right, well, I'll be there. Anybody who wants to come, like you said, check David's Instagram, figure out a way to get there. I'm sure a lot of the guys will be there to support you as well. So a chance to maybe get some bowling in with some Patriots players.
Yeah, it's a great event.
All right, back to, this past week and the
Yeah,
frustration. Just talk about the frustration of, okay, you go out early and then going out there and seeing your guys out there without you and
yeah,
struggle a little bit. I'm sure there's probably a feeling like, man, if I was out there, I could help do this. Or, Jacoby was sacked 6 times. Obviously, that was a really good defense they were going against. But to lose the leader of the offensive line not only is tough for you and like you said, the frustration of that, but tough on them. Um, let's just talk about going forward, how you can help in any way, whether you're playing, not playing, whatever it might be, just that leadership role. And going forward, obviously, your main thing is getting healthy as you can be, but in that leadership role, basically spreading that knowledge throughout the rest of the
yeah,
guys too.
yeah. I think anytime you're hurt, you know, no matter what you're doing in life, and obviously we're paid to play. Like, they don't keep any run around just because they like them. And
Hmm.
I wish that was the case. God, there'd be a lot of still guys hanging around, but uh, maybe Ivan. They keep Ivan around.
Ivan, yeah, for sure.
But I think you always want to try to be an asset. And in 19 when I was out, I just wanted to be an asset. And even when I've been hurt, little things here and there, like I had thumb surgery in 20, and you just, what can I do to be an asset to guys? What can I do to help guys? If I obviously have more time, you're going to have more time on your hands if it's watching a little bit more film, and maybe you see something that, a guy in a normal week when he's got a million things going on that like he might not, pick up on. And so I think no matter what you're doing, if you're playing or not, whether you're a practice squad guy, reserve guy, backup, like you just want to be an asset in whatever role you're in. Um, and even if you're a starter, you want to be an asset or you want to be around long.
Hmm.
And I think that's true for a lot of guys, and so you just try to find ways to be an asset, help out whatever you can do. And then obviously on a selfish note is try to get as healthy as you can. And, so you can get back out there and try to figure it out.
All right, let's get away from the depressing, frustrating things. Let's. You said we did a few quick snaps with you last week, just kind of throwing things out there, getting your response. A lot of feedback from that. People really like that. So, are you ready for this week's one? Quick
Yeah.
snaps.
Starting off fast. Here we go. Let's rip it.
All right, karaoke song. I know you probably enjoy a good karaoke song down in the South. I'm guessing like Toby Keith or
Toby Keith's a
something
good
like
one.
that.
If it's a duet,
Hmm.
got to do Picture, Kid Rock, Sheryl Crow.
Ooh, that's a
Me and
good
my
one.
wife kill that.
All right.
Even though that song's not about happily married, we're very happily married, but you couldn't tell when we're singing the song, But
Okay. What about a solo?
solo, I don't know, man. I really love Family Tradition's a great one. That gets people going,
Okay.
Um, that's a good one.
Is it bad that I don't know what that is?
Yeah, all right. See, Danny. You don't know
Family
that song?
Traditions. Who sings that?
Hank
I've
Williams
never heard of
Jr.
that song in my life.
Oh my
All right. Yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't grow up in the deep South, David. Sorry.
I think Da should sing it for us so we
Yeah.
know what
Can
it
you just
sounds
give
like.
us maybe if you
They
sing the
all
chorus, I
want
might
to
recognize.
know, Hank, why do you drink to get, well, then the crowd goes, to get drunk. Why do
Okay.
you roll smoke to get high? Why must you live out the songs that you wrote? And then there's a part about you do that because of girls and other things. And then,
Okay. All right.
I
I'll look
mean,
it
it's
up. I
just, it
still don't
talks
know what
about,
it
so
is.
like, all right, so here's the backstory. Hank Williams Sr.'s probably the
Yep.
greatest country singer of all time. He had a son, Hank Williams Jr.
Yep.
Hank Sr. died very early, and they wanted Hank to be Hank Sr. That was a lot of pressure for him, all this
Hmm.
stuff. He was more of a rebel, outlaw than his dad. Even, I mean, his dad was too. I mean, his dad drank.
He was Monday Night Football, right? That's Hank Williams
Yeah, yeah,
Sr.
yeah,
was
yeah,
was Monday
yeah.
Night Football. Yeah.
Hank Jr. Jr. So
It
he
was
wanted,
Junior that did
yeah,
Monday Night
yeah,
Football.
he wanted to do like rockin', Southern rock, country, and everyone wanted him to sing the sad songs that his dad sang. And so he talks
Got it.
about, I went and broke the family tradition, and it's a great song, and people love it. That's a song that gets people going.
All right. I'll listen to it after this.
Yeah,
All
you'll
right.
love it.
All right. Number 2. If you weren't playing football, what job would you have?
Oh man, that's a hard one because I never thought about doing anything else. One, being a firefighter always interested me.
Okay.
From the time I was a little boy, like trucks, lights, hanging out with the guys.
I know
I
Ford
always-
likes it too. I've seen you
Yeah,
taking
yeah.
them to
Ford's
the
a big fire truck guy,
trucks.
and it's
Yep.
great for me because I secretly love going to the fire station. I love going to the fire station, and
You're a good dad.
the Foxborough Fire Station. Those guys over there are awesome, so I've always loved that. I don't know. I went to school for agricultural business. Thought maybe I'd get in something sales wise in that field. I don't
Farmer,
know.
I see your John Deere hat you're always wearing.
Yeah, I
for
don't
our
know if I'd be
podcast.
a
Maybe-
big farmer. That's a big undertaking, but I do have my farm back home, and that stuff interests me when I'm done playing, and what I want to do down there. But I think I would have been in something in football, high school football coach, something. I don't know. I still want to do that to some degree. I was talking to Ben Jones the other day. Who,
Ben, I play with Ben.
Yeah, you're close with Ben. He's coaching high school football in Tennessee right now, and loving it, man.
That's
He's
awesome.
loving it. He's like, I'm getting so much fulfillment out of it, which is, awesome to hear because as a guy closer to that side of the fence, like that, makes me feel good that he's
We
doing
should
that.
get him on the
So
podcast.
we could get him on. He would love to do it. He ain't got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Just
I
sitting at
mean,
home.
when I think about it, 2 of my favorite centers of all time that I ever played with, Ben Jones, David Andrews. You guys
he taught
are
me.
friends.
He taught me so much, man. While we were
He
at
puked a
Georgia
lot
together.
too. Now that I think of it, I mean,
Yeah,
it
he
must be
puked a lot too.
Georgia center
but
thing. So,
he just taught me a lot. So that's my guy. I got his jersey right there.
all right, let's try to set that up.
All right, we will.
All right, next one. If you could swap lives with one teammate for a day, who would it be? Be careful.
That's a tough, Danny. That's a tough one, Danny. Current or all time?
Got you there.
Give us one current, one all time.
Current,
I know who I'm picking all time.
all time. I'm saying Tom.
I was going to say Danny Amendola. Danny is, I think, I know we're working on getting him on the podcast. He's a little busy right now, Dancing with the Stars. But like the Dos Equis, like most interesting man commercial? To me, that is Danny Amendola. And when I see his Instagram and the things he's doing, and he was out there in Vegas with me last year, and he just, probably the nicest guy, but also lives probably the craziest, most
Yeah, Danny's
interesting life.
awesome.
And so he would probably be the one I'd swap with for all time. But you can go ahead and do current and
I'll
your
do
all time.
Tom. I'll do Tom, and then current. I'd say KB.
That's what I was thinking too.
Just the like.
Just to feel how happy he must feel every single day.
I remember when he got married during minicamp, and like we were all like, we didn't know. Some of us didn't. I didn't know. And so we're like, why is KB like? Because it's $30,000,
Mm-hmm.
and like to go ask Bill like, hey, I'm getting married, and like to be on the wall in that conversation to me, like,
And then he got him a wedding cake, remember?
yeah, he got him a cake, and you just know
He
KB
came back
was
to
like,
the team meeting. There's
Yeah.
his wedding cake. I'm like,
I feel like
what is going on?
I feel like if I went in there and was like, hey, coach, can I talk to you? And he'd be like, get him. And I'd be like, hey, I was thinking about getting married, Tuesday of mini camp. And he would just have this blank stare on his face. So I'd be like, yeah, no, I was kidding. That's a joke. Sorry. April Fool's. Like, I don't,
Well,
sorry
look,
about that.
AB.
Yeah, I don't. And I'd go home and tell my wife, like, yeah, we're not doing that. So
Pick a
I
different
can't
day.
imagine that conversation. And I bet Bill, like, by the end of it was laughing because it's KB.
Yeah. Just the audacity to ask.
He's like a golden retriever, He's like the dog, like
Oh.
that pees on your rug, and you like yell at it. He's just like,
It's
like,
okay.
yeah,
It's funny because I was with KB his rookie year. So you can
Yeah.
only imagine if you know him now where he's
I
at.
can't imagine. No,
You
I
can
can't.
imagine KB as a rookie. Like he would run like a great route. I'd throw him the ball, he'd drop it. And it was like it didn't affect him at all whether he dropped the ball or not. He'd just come back with the ball smiling, and Kyle would be on his ass all the time. and then to see where he grew to when he came to New England, and really, I mean, he had obviously some major contributing plays
Yeah.
to the
And he's a
49ers and
great
their Super
player.
Bowl run and all that stuff. Yeah, but when he came to New England, it really took off. And unfortunately, last year he dealt with the injury. He's coming back here pretty soon, but he's literally one of the. And my locker was next to him in 2021, and no matter what I was going through, on my day to day, whatever it was, tough day, whatever it might be, seeing him walk in with like the ever present smile on his face always brightened my
It
day.
was,
And so
yeah, I love seeing
it's
KB every morning. That's for sure.
yeah. So we'll work on getting him on here too, because I think people will love to hear from him, and just his outlook on life is, no matter what, he's
It's the
always
best. It's the
happy and
best, man.
joyful, and that permeates throughout, the guys around him.
Yeah.
All right, last one. Kind of fitting since you're coming back from playing an away game. Favorite NFL stadium to play in that isn't Gillette?
That's a good one. The only one I think I was going through a list a little while ago. I think the only one I haven't been to is Baltimore, because in 19 I missed it with the blood clots. So I think that's the only one on my list. Kansas
You're not
City's
missing anything.
Kansas City's awesome. That game in 18 is probably up there in my career and top games all time.
Yep.
Great environment. I think Denver's awesome, especially when they're rolling.
Yeah,
Denver,
I love Denver. Yep.
They got a great fan base. I got to play in Green Bay last year, or was that 22? 22.
That was when I got knocked out.
Yeah,
22.
22.
I hate
22.
Lambeau Field for the reason that both times I've started on that field. Concussion, knocked out of the game, broken forearm, knocked out of the game. It's cool. Trust me, going down like the little stairs.
I
in the
filmed
tunnel,
that. I
but
filmed that. I keep that on my phone.
Yeah.
That little walkout, because I think if you're in NFL football, like that's a mecca of NFL football, man. And
it's really the last old stadium left. Everybody else has kind of moved on. I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of, for fans here that are in Boston, I would compare it to Fenway, right? Like it's been there forever.
yeah, it's a
and
cathedral.
I guess Soldier Field has been renovated so many times it doesn't have that old feeling. It's cool when you get in there, but you can see there's like this new part, and when you go to Lambeau, it feels like you're stepping back in time a little
Yeah,
bit.
I think just the history of it is awesome, and I think going to play Buffalo, man, that's always a great environment. To me, it's not about the stadium and like the architecture and coolness of the stadium. It's more just like environments, and I think those are some really good environments and great fan bases. Places I've always enjoyed.
So you're gonna go with Kansas City, favorite one to play in?
Yeah, I guess that would be top three, and maybe because of the memories, Kansas City.
Yeah. Okay.
Wait, I got one last quick snap for DA before we get to our fantastic interview with Hunter Henry.
Okay.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I need your thoughts on Georgia Bama.
That's what I was going to get to. I don't want to I don't want to rub salt in the wound, which has already been a rough weekend. But we were texting Saturday night, and I'm sure you were 3 hours behind, so I'm sure you're sitting there watching the game. And I know they made it close, but come on, dogs. I mean, what are we doing?
You can't win till you stop from beating yourselves, right? And
That's right.
no, I mean, it's funny to me, right? Because I hear people talk about college football, and they'll be like, "Man, that was such a great game. It was a great game." And maybe this is just my jaded sense of watching it from Bill's perspective all these years. I'm like, that was a great game.
Yeah.
That was shitty. Like,
I feel the same way.
you know what I mean? Like, it's like you're watching it, and entertainment wise, yeah, it's a great game. But you're like, there's like 7 turnovers. I don't know how many. There's a lot of turnovers. Like they're throwing the ball up. They just got to stop them. They get a big, like, little things like that. I think from a fan aspect is awesome, and that's why people do love it, because it's like anything can happen. But when you've grown up learning football from Bill Belichick, you watch
It
these
ruins
games,
watching football.
It ruins watching football because you're just so critical. You're like, that was terrible situational. That was this. That was that. In
Reach
your
the
mind,
ball at the end line.
yeah,
at the goal
you're like,
line.
oh, that was a church situation that they executed like a bingo. You're doing all these things in your head, and you're like, sometimes you're just sitting there. I'm just like in my head. I'm like, will you just shut the hell up and watch the game and like enjoy it? But so on that aspect, it was great, and I think when I was watching it as a fan, I'm glad we did. I thought it was going to be 100-0. That's what it looked like, you know. And it was kind of funny. We were hanging out in my room, some of the guys, and we're just kind of. It was great being on the West Coast because you didn't have to stay up to midnight watching it. So you're just kind of sitting there watching it, and you know you're kind of like, oh, well, we scored. That's good. Like, and then you're kind of like, well, we scored again. You're kind of like, hold on, wait a minute now.
Yep.
So that last 8 minutes of that game were awesome, man, wild. And you know, I think if you're Georgia, I saw a speech about Kirby, his locker room speech after the game, and I thought he did a great job of how he approached it. You know, and I'm sure they got an earful of it on Sunday or Monday whenever they met, because of, like we said, some of that execution in the first half. But to see the fight of the team, the ability to overcome that adversity, I don't think Georgia's a football team that's faced a ton of adversity over the last 3 or 4 years, you know. They've just been very dominant and very good, and there's nothing wrong with that. And to see them face some adversity, overcome it, I think if you're a player, that's something you can take and learn, and you can really grow. And, you know, that's one of those games where you get back and you're super sad. I think we talked about this before. You know, you're super sad, you're super frustrated, but you're like, hey, if we just did 6 things better, that game's we own that team. And so I think, you know, that's not a way you want to live, but for morale or whatever you want to say as a team, if you correct those things and learn from them, you're going to just explode and grow. So I think that if they use it the right way and learn from it the right way, you know, I'm still very excited. I think, you know, they showed like, hey, like we can compete with anyone. You know what I mean? Like even if we are down 100, we can compete and come back. And so it builds that faith in your football team. So I think I have a couple. I might have to wear an Alabama shirt. I don't know.
Ooh. I was gonna say who's on the team right now that you had to make some wagers with.
You know, Anthony, he said something about an Alabama shirt, and he hasn't brought it up, and I damn sure ain't bringing it up.
Well, now you're saying it, he's gonna hear it.
Yeah, I mean, then it's gonna be like statute of limitations. Be like, it's too late after now. That,
All right,
we're moved on. So
yeah, I had a bet with one of my buddies who was a BC guy. He actually calls the game on the radio for them with the Michigan State game, and so I'm still waiting. He told me I have to wear it for this podcast, so probably next week I'll probably be wearing some BC gear.
Well,
but it's just okay because it's Billy O,
team,
and I support Billy O. So
no, I think what he's done, you know, has been awesome to see. You know, I've I wasn't around Billy O that long, but enjoyed working with him last year, and you know, being a hometown kid like he is, like that's such a great job for him, and you know, he knows this area, these people, and you know, I've been super excited watching. You know, I've never really paid that much attention to BC football, and you know, it's kind of now you get on the ESPN app, check BC, you see what they're doing, and so that's been awesome to see.
Yeah, it's funny. We were talking, Danny and I were talking. He was on Julian's podcast. I don't know if you caught
saw
that
some
one
of
or not
those
yet. But the one that kind of stuck out to me was they were talking about Ernie's cards and how it would drive everybody insane. And just to get that story out there, because literally, well, you remember. You know, obviously you weren't there with Billy in the first years where he was the coordinator before he left, but last year. But when Josh was there, Tom would always, maybe you don't even know this, he'd be like, hey, is Larry on the bag today? Because he was referencing like a caddy being like telling Tom, like, because Ernie would draw the cards and you wouldn't really know what to expect.
Let's explain something for the people that they understand. So the scout team, when you're playing in a week of practice, the people giving a look, you use cards because you're usually not playing an offense that you know.
Yeah, so you can't just use your own terms.
Or defense that you know. Sometimes there's like, you know, like I can remember like, you know, when we would play a certain, we played Detroit against, you know. Matty P, like maybe we didn't use cards because we could kind of just call our offense or whatever. Our defense, excuse me. But so, you know, we talk Monday run game, you know, Thursday third down, maybe some situational stuff. And Friday is more of like, it's a very important day of the week, but you want it to be a fluff day. Like you don't want it to be, you know, super competitive in some senses. You know, you want it to be good work, but like everyone wants to leave the field Friday being like, hey, we put a bow. Yeah, we feel good. We put a bow on it. We know what we're doing. You know, you want it to be sharp and crisp. And so it's really the emphasis on Friday is the red zone. That's the big area you're putting in. And then you maybe have, you know, call it 12 plays in the field where you're kind of going over like, you know, first down, second down, third down, kind of your top calls, maybe something you just want to clean up from the week, and do that 3 or 4 times, and then, have a big red zone area. So everyone on Friday just wants to feel good. Everyone feels like they have a good grasp on the defense. If they do this is what's coming, and you just want to see that, awareness, response, and all that out of your guys. And then you get in there, on Friday, and a blitz is coming up that you've never seen before. It's all out. It doesn't get protected. It's messed up. The coverage is messed up. Now Tom is just absolutely losing his mind, and Julian was a good for a Friday fight, which is just wild in the NFL.
Oh yeah.
A Friday fight from Julian. But parts of me were like, all right, well, he's ready to go. But if DB got, pressed Julian on a Friday, he was probably losing his mind and gonna fight, which was always interesting on a Friday. But yeah, so Fridays are supposed to be kind of your wrap up fluff day, and then you'd have Ernie with his little gyms.
Yeah. And Billy O was kind of saying on the podcast, like, Tom, like, Ernie, they don't do that. I've watched every film, and Ernie be like, well, they did it 5 years ago, and this coordinator was a defensive back coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. And he wasn't lying. Like, he would go.
No, he's right.
He
wasn't pulling. He wasn't making stuff up.
No,
but he was making stuff up.
Well, I had the privilege of running the scout team, and some of the cards we would get, it'd be like a triple reverse pitch back to the quarterback, throw a deep ball, and Devin would be so pissed. He'd be like, do you have to throw it deep on Fridays? And I'm like, dude, I'm just doing what Ernie's telling me to do. Don't take it out on me.
Don't shoot the messenger.
Yeah, exactly. But it was funny to hear Billy O on Julian's podcast kind of tell that story, because it's, one of those inside stories that only we know about, but for the rest of the fans to hear about was pretty cool. So
yeah, no, that's what I think. Well, these things are great for, just you hear these stories. And, you were a part of them, and you can remember all the laughs and stuff, and so it's awesome when guys get to share those.
100%. Well, I'm glad I get to share this with you. Let's let you get back and get as healthy as you can. Prepare for the Dolphins this week, get things turned back around, which I think the Patriots definitely can do. Obviously, the Dolphins dealing with their own injury issues, particularly at the quarterback position. So
I think it's a huge week.
Huge week.
I think,
and back at home,
divisional game and against a team we know, and it'll be a big challenge. They got a good front. Zeiler, Calais Campbell, good edge guys. So, it'll be a big challenge. And, but like you said, I think it's a team that, put it all behind you and put it all into this week and see where it lays, Sunday at 4:00.
Love it. Yep. All right, man. Get healthy. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, guys. See y'all.
6th episode. Wow. Can't believe that. 6th episode of the Quick Snap podcast. Well, one of my favorite teammates of all time, Hunter Henry. I know DA obviously still playing with Hunter, super close, and really thankful that you're here, Hunter, because I know it was a long trip to the West Coast. The game didn't go the way you guys wanted it to, but to have you here, we really appreciate it and look forward to talking to you, not just about football, but a bunch of other things too.
Yeah, man.
Hammerman. So should we start with that? One of the best nicknames of all time. So Hunter, that was 2021, right? Your first year here.
Yeah.
And I'll let you tell the story, but basically there was a question whether someone got into your house or not, and there was camera footage, and of all the things you picked to use, there was a hammer that you picked to defend the home.
Yeah. It's a good story. It was literally right when we moved here. So we had just gotten into our house and kind of getting everything set up. There's stuff everywhere. Obviously, like when you move into a new house, there's things you're fixing, you're doing. So my toolkit is just in my room already. So, there's not much in our house, but we have the security system in, and it's kind of like the first, I don't know, it was like the first couple of weeks we were in, and I think it was during training camp maybe. And literally at 3 a.m. in the morning, our alarm just tripped. Just that new security system, it just tripped off. But I'm like, oh, and I heard it, but I was like kind of rolling back over, and I was like, I'll just turn it off. I think it's just tripping out, whatever. Parker was like, no, you need to go check everything. I was like, yeah, that's true. I need to go check everything. So I'm like, oh man, like I don't have my gun or anything right now. Like all I have right now is this, literally my toolkit next to literally my bed right here. So I literally grab a hammer and was like, if I see something or see someone, I kind of want something to defend myself.
Hmm.
So literally, I was like, I mean, obviously we could throw down fists or whatever, but I
A little
needed
extra
something
reach
to,
right there.
a little bit of extra, a little extra, a little bit more power. So found the hammer. Um, I ended up going in my garage. We have a camera in our garage, and so like I'm spinning the hammer around, and my wife like thought it was hilarious. So she screen records it. She shows it to Damian Harris about a week later, and then it just kind of
Yeah,
Oh,
exploded
man.
Dame's
from
the
that.
real, Dame's the
Um,
real,
Yeah, he
real,
was.
the
yeah,
processor, the real inventor.
Well, he just started calling Hammerman, Hammerman. I mean, it's like literally in the back of my mind every time he would see you, Hammerman, Hammer, and then it became a celebration. If I recall correctly,
yeah.
after a few
It kind of
touchdowns, you holding the hammer.
exploded. It exploded that year as the year went on. I had a good year, like touchdown wise, so it just it kind of
It's a
exploded
great
internally
nickname.
there.
I think, like, you know, you grew up in Atlanta, Hunter, Hammer, and Hank Aaron. You know, like
Yeah.
it's Hammerman. That's a great nickname. There's a lot of worse things to be called. That's for sure.
That's true.
Yeah, I
That's
I've
mean,
true.
been called
honestly,
worse.
yeah, it's yeah. I mean, I think there could be worse nicknames. So I'll take it. I run with it. I like it.
Yeah, I always thought that was great. That was a great year for us as a team. Obviously, Max rookie year, but there was a lot of new energy, and you were part of that. It was you, KB, Judon, Mills. Like that was really the first time, at least in my Patriots career, where there was kind of this injection of new blood from the free agency. And so, just for you, talk about making that decision because I remember talking to you about this. You know, we signed Johnu that same year too, and just that decision process to leave LA, come to a real sports town in Boston, and now here you are a few years on. But I remember just talking to you about that process and how huge you were in the success of the team that year.
Yeah, it was obviously that was my first time hitting free agency, and it was just kind of a lot to process hitting free agency. There was a lot of unknowns out there. I felt like at the time, I thought I had a chance to go back to LA at the time, but once that door was closed, I had to look elsewhere, and um, I had a previous connection in a way with Bill.
Mhm.
Obviously, he was tight with my high school
We'll have to get
coach,
into that at
so
some point
there
because this
was
guy is
I
wild.
have a story. I have a great story about that too. I have a
there was
great
some
story.
there was some ties there already, and obviously just the history of Bill, obviously, and just the Patriot culture and everything. It was just something I wanted to be a part of. Obviously, it was a big change moving across the country and doing all that, but when I had the opportunity to do it, I felt like I
I
had to jump
think
on it.
it was interesting, right? And Hoyer, I know you sat in a lot of team meetings. Hammer, you sat in your fair share. You could always tell like guys that Bill really liked around the league. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
like you always just by watching film, like how he would talk about guys, and you'd be like, he really likes that guy. And if he can get, yeah,
Yeah,
if he likes him and
glowingly.
he can get, like when we announced they signed Hunter, I was like, wow, that's breaking news, huh? Yeah, really. Which it was, but like, you know what I mean? Like you could just tell, like, there was always those guys Bill would just talk about. And, you were always one of those guys when we played y'all a few times and, he raved about you. So when, I saw that, I was like, that's just par for the course right there. But, you have been such a great addition to our football team in a lot of ways. And, selfishly, we've become close and our wives and, we got kids around the same age. So, it's been awesome for me having you around. And, I think that was such an interesting year in 21 because we were kind of in this weird phase and, and trying to rebuild and get back going. And we had a little success there in 21, which you were such a huge part of.
That leads me to my story about Hunter's high school coach, Kevin Kelly, right?
This
That's
guy.
his name.
Yeah,
Is he
So
still
this
coaching
is
there,
like
Hunter?
2018. So
Oh,
he
that's a
is not.
shame.
He's
That's
not
a
there
shame.
anymore.
okay. So this is 2018. And as David said, we know your high school coach because Bill would always find these guys that he would become infatuated with, and he'd bring them in to speak to the team. So I'm going in. It's got to be like December 2018, and the entrance we go into at Gillette. There's like this guy and at the time I thought it was like just his friend. He had like a full beard. I come to find out it's Coach Kelly's son. They're like, "Hey, can you let us in?" And I'm like, "I'm not going to be the guy to let some random two dudes into the team facility at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning." He's like, no, I got a text from Bill right here. He pulls up his phone. I'm like, that could be anybody. I could put David Andrews' name as Bill Belichick in my phone and be like, yeah, I got a text from Bill. I'm like, hold on, let me go talk to Bearish and I'll send some. I'm not being the person to just let some. But sure enough, I go to the team meeting. He's there in front of the team. So I was like, I guess he wasn't lying. So he goes and he talks, and obviously he's famous for not punting in games, right? That's like his big thing.
Yeah.
So he talks and he kind of gives the spiel, and Bill's like talking about like this he's an innovator, all this stuff. So on Saturdays, the quarterbacks, we'd meet with Bill to kind of just get some last notes, watch some film before the game the next day. Well, Coach Kelly and his son are sitting in our room, and they're kind of talking, and he kind of has that southern drawl, right? He's like, "Y'all, man, y'all's playing the Jets. I see they play quarters. Maybe throw some posts in there. I think you throw some posts." And Tom Brady's looking at me like, "What the fuck is this guy talking about?" Like, and Bill's taking notes. Bill's like, "Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea." So then Bill's replaying a play from like the week before, and it's Tom hitting Gronk, and Coach Kelly's like, "Damn, I ain't never seen a tight end do anything like this." And Bill pauses the tape. He goes, "Coach, you coached Hunter Henry in high school. What do you mean you've never seen a tight end like this?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, you're right, coach, you're right." And it was like this ongoing thing. And it was one of the funniest meetings that we ever had on those Saturday meetings with Bill. But I'll never forget. He kind of looked at him. He's like, "Are you nuts? Like, you coached Hunter Henry in high school. Like, what do you mean you've never seen a tight end do this before?" But that leads us to David's story. Like, we knew that Bill always liked Hunter, and then obviously having an opportunity to go get him and pairing you with Jonnu, because that was a big thing, right? Like signing 2 tight ends to really big deals.
Hey, Hoy, you want to talk about his website?
No.
No, we don't need to do. We don't need to get into his website.
He gave in, so I think he had to take it down.
Yeah, he did have to take it down.
Yeah, I think he had to take it down. No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which proved his point.
My high school, Kevin is all time, man. Like honestly, he's one of the hardest coaches that ever on me, and I think like that's helped propel me in a lot of ways. But also just like looking back on it, there was just some crazy times because he is he is wild for sure, and he's very.
I don't know
confident,
about
let's
y'all,
just say.
but obviously we've all played in the league, and there's nothing like getting to do this for a living. Like, I don't think any of us could say there was something better we'd want to be doing. But is there anything better than high school football? I just don't know if there is. Those relationships, the guys, the Friday nights, and now you put so much on nutrition, preparation, all this stuff, rest, whatever it is. And, you were just sitting in algebra class 3 hours before your game, and like, then you were just rolling it out there with the boys, right? Riding on a bus. Like, those were the best, man. You can't beat high school football, those relationships. And a lot of high school coaches, obviously have such a huge impact on guys, not only in football, but in life. So I know my coaches sure did. So can't beat that high school football.
Yeah, especially in the states where we come from. I mean, I don't know how many high school games you guys have gone and watched here in Massachusetts, but it's a different animal here as compared to Ohio, Arkansas, Georgia. I mean, that's literally takes on that Friday Night Lights mentality. Whereas sometimes I go to the games around here, there's only stands on one side of the field. And I was like, man, I wouldn't even play in a 7th grade game like that in Ohio. But in Ohio, in your states, like, football really is high school football. That's everybody closes down the city for that Friday night game. And I remember playing in front of 20,000 people against the Massillon Tigers in Ohio. The kids are throwing batteries at you while you're walking out. I mean, it really was that Friday Night Lights mentality.
Yeah, you can't beat it, man. It's the best.
You guys have anything similar like that in your respective?
I've never
high
been
school?
hit with a battery.
Obviously,
no.
Hunter, you guys were.
I got hit with. I got.
They had
I
a
got hit
tiger
with
on
a
the
cup of
sideline.
coffee in
They literally
Pittsburgh.
had
They were trying to hit Tom, but the guy sucked at throwing and just nailed me. But it was cold, so it kind of felt actually kind of nice, and we won.
I've had some close calls like that. Maybe not rocks as much or batteries, but I've gotten rocks at the bus as the bus pulls in. I think we had some parents like run on the field
That's messy.
one time too, like
That's
because
messy.
our field was super tight. Like I mean, it was a big stadium, but like people would stand around the whole like outside of the field, which kind of made it messy as well. So like if you got hit out of bounds or something, it was just kind of it was just tight over there. But Yeah, we had some messy ones for sure, but I think the parents get into it sometimes almost
I
more
think
more
that's
than
my
the
biggest
kids
goal in
Oh
life
sometimes.
yeah.
now. Having 2 boys is not trying to be a terrible little league parent, and I'm so scared. I'm so
You just
scared
wait. You
because I
just
know
wait.
like my juices are going to get flowing, and sometimes you just got to turn it on and turn it loose. You know what I
100%.
mean? Like, but I don't want to do that. I
I
don't want to
think
do
I
it.
think there's a I think there's a balance though. Like I think we can be that, but also I think we know when to
I
turn it
hope
on and
so.
off,
I hope
hopefully,
so.
in a way. Like more than I hope
You
so. I
you
don't know. I
just
don't know where
wait
we're at
because
though.
last year the amount of times my wife sent me to center field because of the things that I was saying on the first or third base
Just go
line. But
stand in the
shout out to
outfield, Brian.
my
Go stand
Boston
in the
Prime.
outfield.
Well, that's where there's a few dads on my son's team, and we would just go out there and just vent to each other and try not to be too loud and get kicked out of the game. But it'll no matter how much you try to control it, that competitor in you is it'll come out. So you just got to be wise about first of all staying away from your wife when you're doing it, and then finding a good group of dads that kind of see it the same way as you, because it's different from when we grew up.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah. I could,
I was going to say the only thing when we were talking about our stories of high school, the only thing I could think of comparative in the NFL is driving the
Bills.
bus out of the Buffalo Bills tailgating parking lot. Some of
Bills
the
is
stuff you
awesome.
see getting flashed, people jumping on. I mean, that's to me is probably the closest thing to like that Friday
Yeah,
Night Lights
Bills.
mentality
Bills is a
in the
wild.
yeah.
NFL.
Oakland,
Old Oakland. Yeah, I
old
never
Oakland.
Oakland,
played there.
Oh yeah.
Old Oakland had
Oh, I'm
some
sure.
scenes
Raider Nation,
back in
or
the
what do
day.
they call
That
themselves?
was pretty awesome.
Black Hole.
The
Yeah,
black hole.
that whole
The
like they
black
just be
hole.
down there
Yep.
fully dressed. I have a lot of respect for fans that do that. To be honest with you, because I know like my least favorite part is getting dressed and undressed some days. Like all the tape.
Well, I saw your pregame outfit after we talked about your style, and you were definitely going for comfort. We're sitting here talking with Hunter, who you voted one of the best dressed. I would say that you came to the game the least
What does
best
that have to do
dressed.
with anything? We're not talking about that.
You were talking about dressing up, and I
Yeah, I
said
was talking
clearly
about
by
like
the outfit you didn't want to
taping
get
all
dressed.
your hands and your feet and
I
all
gotcha.
that.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
getting to cut all that stuff
All right.
off. Like they're going full body
That's true.
paint, shoulder pads. Dude, me getting my shoulder pads
Yeah.
on game day is like a 3-person job.
I know. It's
But
always
that's
funny when
crazy,
I like
Hammer.
if
You would do that
Garrett,
to me.
my
That's
son.
crazy.
What?
I mean, I'm not putting together an outfit.
I mean, I can't. I just threw something together, man. It's just what it is. You got to dress good.
It's a
You
lifestyle.
feel good. You
Yep.
play good.
That's right.
It kind of all comes into one. It's just like you got to put yourself in that mindset. I don't know. That's just kind of how I approach it.
That's what I went with. So my son had his first tackle
Did you put
football
him in a
game
suit?
last week, and no, but he trust me when he got his gear on, he looked the part. And I said, "Look, listen, Deion Sanders said it best. You got to look good. That'll make you feel good. If you feel good, you'll play
You play
good." And
good,
so
you get paid good.
that's right. That's right. And so he looked the part. And but you talk about putting on gear. Like I made him bring all his stuff home the day before because I wasn't going to be there to help him. And I know how tough it is putting on those pads. So we got the pads on the jersey. So all you had to do is slip it on. But I remember for me, that's like a 30-minute process to get ready to get dressed to go out for the game. And it was always the same thing. Like I always did in the same order. And I was one of the guys, I didn't like getting in my stuff until like basically the 30 minutes before I had to get out. But for you guys, any pregame routines to like getting dressed or getting ready that you have to do in a certain order? Because I know I had a certain order to get ready.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't.
You probably
I
do
use
it
the
without thinking
bathroom like
about it.
7
Yeah, I
times
don't.
on
I
game
probably.
day.
Well, we talked about you vomiting, so that's part
It's
of your
it's
routine.
all
Yeah,
facets.
that's part of it. I don't like being. I don't like being too early, but I also don't
Mhm.
like being too rushed.
Yeah, you don't want to. It's
It's
that
like
fine
it's
balance.
that like fine balance of like, all right, like I hate getting ready too early and just sitting in my pads, but I also hate like when they're like 3 minutes and
Yeah.
you're like, oh shoot, we got to get going. Like I got to like
Mhm.
throw my pads on and like be rushed. So it's like trying to find that balance of like, um, not being too early, but also not feeling too rushed. I don't have anything like crazy that I do. Um, I feel like I always have to listen to like Thunderstruck at least once.
Love it.
On that was like something that honestly all the way back to my dad in Pee Wee football.
That's
Literally
awesome.
every football game, my dad would just play
That's awesome.
Thunderstruck,
That's
and
cool.
That's
it
awesome.
just
That's a
it's
great
always
memory.
it's always
Um,
stuck with me.
All right, let's shift back to okay. We talked about you coming here in 2021, first chance at free agency, but you recently obviously re-signed to stay here. Just talk about like the idea of doing that and becoming kind of like one of the leadership guys on the team, knowing that there's a transition coming. We've on this podcast we've talked about Jerod a lot. Obviously, you got to witness Jerod as a defensive coach, but now as a head coach, and just your thought process of wanting to like kind of make this your place for right now going into the future and being that one of those core guys on the team that's kind of, as we mentioned before, had a really good first year, some struggles the past 2 years, and now back to this year in that transition.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I hated just, leaving kind of where it was.
Mm-hmm.
Also, that was one thing. And then I've always had a respect for Mayo. We, built a relationship, just him as a defensive coach. But, I've always had a great relationship with him. And, we talked throughout the process a little bit. And I was excited for what was to come. And I still am. I feel like I'm a leader in the locker room, a guy that, the young guys can look to, a guy that, the team can rely on. So
Mm-hmm.
just, I was excited for that opportunity and still am excited for the rest of the season for that too. And, I attack every single day, try to be as consistent as I can be, and just try to go to work every single day and show, kind of be the example that maybe some of the young guys can follow of like how you go about your business.
Yeah, I think for me, they couldn't ask for. I mean, we've been fortunate. Obviously, I'm doing this show with David. We talked about them re-signing him, the commitment they made to him because of the leadership he is. We had Jay Jones on last week. We had Jacoby Brissett. We had Matt Light on. We've had the fortunate ability to have these guests on who are these core players who set a great example for other players. And that, to me, when I think of being a New England Patriot, you are one of those ultimate guys like the James Whites, the Matt Slaters. You have now become one
Yeah.
of those guys who's that veteran guy in the room, and obviously they felt the same way to show that commitment to you going forward. So, for me, getting to know you that year in 2021, 2022 was awesome. And now to see you take on this even bigger role, leadership role, I'm thankful that you're here to be able to, still have these relationships and watch you out there every Sunday. Obviously had a great game against Seattle. Thank God you were out there because you kept the whole passing game going that day. Seemed like every pass play was going to you. And I talked about it now on doing some of these media things, how savvy you are. Like, the paper might say run this route at 12, but if Hunter knows he's open at 10, he's going to be open at 10 in the timing of the play and things like that you can teach these young guys is so invaluable. And so, yeah, you get paid for what you do on the field, but the stuff you do off the field and the leadership and what you're teaching those young guys, I think the Patriots are so lucky to have you and keep you around.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's, in our room, especially, I mean, adding Hoop too has been great. He's added a great value. I mean, it's, me and him see the game in such a similar way too, in a lot of ways. And, trying to help out the young receivers too as much as I can. And just how I see things. Obviously, everybody's different in their own aspect, but just like you said, the pass game is just a lot of it's a feel, man, and a lot of it is like repetitions and getting to a spot at a certain time. So, if I can, I like to hopefully provide value in some of that
It's
aspect when I
so
can.
interesting, right? And I think what's interesting about football, and I don't know about other sports, but watching guys and like obviously there's super guys that are talented, but like watching like Hunter or whoever, and you talk about like being a football player, and like that savvy, and there's such an interesting thing, and I
Hmm.
guess it goes with every sport, but like obviously just like knowing, having that ability to understand where I need to be, how I need to be there, reaction, uh, is a lot of stuff. I just don't know how you coach. I don't know how you develop sometimes. I guess it does. I mean, someone maybe like Julian who never played receiver, it was coached to him a little bit, but like there's just something about being a ball player. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
just hearing you kind of talk about that, you guys, it's so interesting and something I've learned and watched guys, like even like a Jacoby Myers, like just,
Mm-hmm.
was Jacoby the most talented freak Nate? No, but like he just understood I'd say the same with Julian. Like obviously
Yeah.
Julian had such great, ball once the ball was in his hands, he was great with it. But like just understanding those things and understanding the other side of the ball and what they're trying to do, I think is something that I don't know. I don't know if it's taught or if guys just have it or they don't sometimes.
I think too, like you mentioned Jacoby, you mentioned Julian, we're here talking to Hunter. Those guys on the inside, especially when they have that same, they view the game the same way as the quarterback. They become such like a safety blanket for the quarterback because it's like, okay, I might check outside, but I know Hunter's going to find the zone in here, and I know like if I'm looking left, I know Hunter's over there somewhere. When I come to him to throw the ball, like he's going to find that zone to work. And then when it's man coverage, it's more about leverage, and he's going to attack the right leverage, and he's always going to be in the right place. And I think you just talked about three really good examples, David, of guys who I don't know how you get it. I think it's just a feel you have because there's clearly guys that are super
Yeah.
talented that don't have that feel. And you're like, man, how is this guy not like he's bigger, faster, stronger, but he doesn't get open the same way that maybe guys who are less talented because they have
Yeah,
a better
well,
feel for
two
it.
of those guys were
And I
quarterbacks,
think,
which is
watching
interesting. I think maybe that
that's true. I think Hunter's got a little QB experience. I
QB
remember
four,
he used to
QB
join us
four.
on our Friday crossbar. Yeah, he'd join us on our Friday
He still gets
crossbar
in there on
competition
Friday
sometimes, and he'd
pre-practice,
show
does a rep or two, make sure he still got it.
show
Oh
the
yeah,
whole drop off, his cadence,
for sure,
everything. So,
for sure.
but I
I
think just
think
like that's savviness is awesome.
yeah, the feel thing. Like you said, I don't know if it's something you teach. Like I've
Yeah,
always
I
had it. Like
think
I've
people
always
do.
just
They
had like
just they just have
a
it
knack.
sometimes. And
Yeah. I've like in high school, I even like just high school, I was kind of new to receiver and like all that. Like honestly, I grew up playing like O line, just because of my dad. You
I
know
knew
what
I
I mean?
liked you, Hammer.
So, I think well, my dad was an O lineman, so like growing up, you're just gonna play. I mean, I played all over the place, but O line was kind of like deep down in there. And then as I kind of got older, basketball, just other sports kind of led me to, realize I was probably a little bit better,
All right,
maybe
now
getting the
you're
ball
you're
and
right.
running
You're
routes.
losing
Now
me.
you're
You
losing
had
it.
me.
I know
You're
I'm
tanking
losing you.
on me.
That's why I get to play tight end. I get the
Yeah, you're staying
little
true
bit
to
of
your
best of
roots a
both
little bit,
worlds.
huh?
Yep.
Yeah.
Best of both worlds. I get to get out when I can, and then I get to block when I can too. So, but the feel thing, I think also like for me, like
Yeah. Hmm.
reps, like the amount of reps I've accumulated over my entire career, like I log them. You know what I mean? Like I can remember things, and I can like, oh, I ran a route like this. Okay, like maybe if I
Mm.
run it like this, I can run it off that. Like I can run the same route, make it try to look like the same in a way, but it's different. So it's just like little intricacies that you like the studying and the remembering and like just continuing to pile on to. I think as the years go, I think that's always been big for me too. And
Yeah,
as
I
I
think
see
one
the
of the
good
ones
guys,
that
they do that.
stand out to me, and you came in 2021, and Nick Caley's your tight end coach, right? And so for years leading up to that, we were always trying to get our tight ends to run these stick nods where you go out and go to the seam in the red area. And I'll never forget, like Nick was literally like losing his mind. He's like, listen, just do this, sell it this way. And then when he got, and finally you came in 2021 and it was like a weight had been lifted off his chest. He was like, oh my God, a guy who knows. And how many, I mean, you had like 3 or 4 touchdowns that year on stick nods, if at least if,
Yeah,
or seams down in the red area. I remember the one-handed grab against, was it the Jets?
yeah,
When Matt kind of threw the ball a little early, but
yeah,
it was like for him, like, oh my God, God sent me a guy who can finally, like, I've coached this thing so hard for all these years, and I finally have a guy who has the savvy and the feel to know when the guy's going and dipping underneath the out route to take it up, or force him outside and then slip him. And so I think watching you do that for me was the first time to ever see a tight end do it. So, and you did a really good job of that when you were playing for the Chargers. So for you to bring it and kind of pass that around to the other guys was pretty good, because I think even Jacoby Myers took some of your, you talk about crossover from position. You're playing tight end, but Jacoby's playing slot, so similar. And he
hmm
even had some really good stick nods just based on watching you and how you worked them.
yeah. I think I learned early, like you said, for the Chargers. I mean, I got put in such an awesome position when I was young, man. I got to be behind Antonio Gates,
Mm.
Hall of Famer, and be with him
Yeah.
every single day and see how he approach the
Yeah,
game
that's
and
awesome.
Yeah.
like just his success, man, alone is incredible. Like obviously we're very different, like it just our body types and how we move and everything, but at the same time I could take things from his game and apply it
Hmm.
to mine. Then I was also with a veteran quarterback in
Right.
Philip Rivers that I think at a young age really helped me
Yeah.
develop fast. and see the game in such a different way just because of his
Yeah, I
knowledge and
mean,
how
you
he
would
saw
see that
things.
with guys with
Yeah,
Tom
that's
too,
awesome.
you know, and I would say even some aspect with me and Tom, like he forced me to try to see the game on his level, which was impossible for me to do, but it made me try to do it as fast as I could and as best as I could and taught me a lot. Um, I think there is something about, you know, having those veteran core because you want the football, you know, and you want Phil to
Yeah.
trust you to throw you the football. So if he tells you to do something this way, that's how you're going to try to do it. And so he knows, like, hey, if I tell Hunter to run this route, he's going to be right here when I want him there, you know. And obviously, you want to score touchdowns and make plays. And you know, for me, I wanted to block for Tom. So hey, whatever you wanted me to do, how you wanted me to do it, I was going to try to get it done. And I do think what you said about Antonio Gates, I think that's something players always should try to do. And I think it's important to remember that you aren't, like you said, you're not Antonio Gates, but don't be Antonio Gates, be Hunter Henry. But at the same time, all right, what does he do well? Where are some areas that I see him doing things that I could improve on for myself and use those? And I think that's a big thing for young guys is like, you don't have to be this person, be who you are, but look at them and take aspects from all their games and not only just tight ends, but you know, all veterans. I did it when I came in looking at Slates and Devin. Like, yeah, I don't cover punts. I don't play on special teams, but there was so much I could learn from Slate and you know whoever. So I think that's something, you know, shows maturity in guys that can do things like that.
Yeah, 100%. I think, you talked about the veterans that you learned from. Here you are now, you're a veteran teaching young guys things. So I think the Patriots are lucky to have you. Thanks for being here with us today. I know today's your off day, so we'll let you get back to the things you got to do before you get back to Miami preparation. But you were one of the guys that we were really looking forward to having on here. Um, Good luck this week. Get back on track, and
Hey, Hunter,
thanks for being here.
Ford
Thanks,
said you
guys.
better be at
Appreciate you
sports
guys.
class tonight.
Oh, let's go,
I
baby.
love it.
Let's go.
Yeah. See you guys.
All right, dude. See you guys.
Thanks, guys. All right, back again with another week of Around the NFL Quick Snaps here with producer Danny. What you got for me this week?
Yeah, happy to be back. Good week 4 in the NFL. I want to start with something a little close to home for you, your dear friend Tom Brady. So he called the Bucs game this weekend against the Eagles. Baker played well, 347 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was a 33-17 win over the Eagles. On the broadcast, though, it was this viral moment. I think Baker got caught up on a podcast talking about the Bucs locker room when Tom was there. And so this was his direct quote, and then Tom had a response. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts. So Baker's quote on this podcast was, "The Bucs building was a little bit different when Tom was in there. Obviously, playing-wise, Tom is different. He had everyone dialed in, high-strung environment, so I think everyone was pretty stressed out. They wanted me to come in, be myself, bring the joy back to football for the guys who weren't having as much fun." And then Tom on the broadcast addressed this quote from Baker, and he said, "I thought stressful was not having Super Bowl rings. There was a mindset of a champion that I took to work every day. This wasn't daycare. If I wanted to have fun, I was going to go to Disneyland with my kids." So curious your thoughts knowing Tom and that interaction between him and Baker.
Yeah, it was pretty funny because I hadn't heard this thing with Baker and these damn podcasts, man. You sit down, you feel comfortable, you say things that maybe you want to say in a different way, and I saw him say his words got taken out of context, but it was pretty clear what he was trying to say was, he's a different player, has a different mindset than Tom, and look, I not only played with Tom in New England, which was a very, let's call it, stressful environment. And I think the whole point was to make you feel comfortable being uncomfortable because there was going to be times in games and situations where it wasn't comfortable. And Bill wanted you to be prepared and not let that emotion kind of overtake you. But I also was in other places, and now none of those other places had as much success as New England. And I think and when I saw those two things, and I had the unique perspective of playing here, leaving, and coming back, and I craved that because I knew that yeah, you put in the tough times, you were stressed during the week, but there was never a game as long as I was playing here, especially when I was the backup to Tom. So let's just talk those years that Tom was a quarterback, that I ever thought we didn't have a chance to win. And in other places, whether I was the quarterback or not, you kind of went in being like, man, I don't know. It wasn't a great week of preparation. I don't know how locked in we are. We had fun. Wednesday was fun. We didn't have to have low lights. We didn't have to have, coach, cussing us out because we had a bad practice. but that didn't always translate to success on Sundays. Now, we talked about it last week. Baker has kind of resurrected his career there. And I would like to think that some of that foundation was what Tom built with those guys. They learned that championship mentality. And I also find it hard to believe that it was super stressful I mean, it wasn't like it was Bill there too. It was Tom taking the lessons he learned from Bill, but basically holding people to a standard. I don't think that should be very stressful. And I think Tom's reaction to that was pretty on par with who he is and who I know him to be. He demanded you, not just himself, but everybody else, to take everything to another level, whether he said it or not, because when you looked at him, at least this was my experience, was if this is what the greatest player of all time is doing to get us to win, I can't do anything less than that. Whether I'm the backup quarterback, the kicker, the defensive backs, I think everybody who's ever played with Tom would probably sit there and say he set such a high standard for himself, which therefore, when you looked at him, you couldn't help but set a higher standard for yourself, because you saw him, you saw the work he was putting in, and you said, man, if that's the best player on our team, the best player to ever do it, if that's what he's doing, and maybe that does put a little stress on you because it puts you outside of your comfort zone a little bit. But I think, his response was great. And the one thing I do remember, and I came back in some difficult times for Tom in 17, 18, 19, kind of leading up to before he left to Tampa. Yes, he wanted to have those environments where he was going to push everybody, but I always remember him talking about he wanted to have the joy in playing too. So there's kind of this yin and yang, and that joy, I can promise you, the greatest moments. Now, I had some when I was actually playing, but when you put all that work in, you dealt with that stress, and then you won a Super Bowl. That was more fun than any other Wednesday practice, Thursday practice, a low light session with Bill, whatever it might be. You realized it was worth it in the end. And look, there's more than, one way to do things, because you look at the Los Angeles Rams and Sean McVay, I'm sure they're having fun and they won a Super Bowl. But I think the one thing that you see was the consistency and the rate at which the teams that he led were always in contention for a Super Bowl. I mean, how many straight AFC Championship games did they go to? And then he leaves New England, and all of a sudden he's in the Super Bowl his first year. And if it weren't for an amazing throw by Matt Stafford on a third down play, they might go back to the Super Bowl his second year there. So I think he set a standard for everyone else, and it wasn't him going around yelling at people. He set a standard because he demanded it out of you, no matter who you were in that facility, in that building. You looked at him and said, if this is how the greatest of all time does it, I got to up my level of what I'm going to do too.
Yeah, look, my perspective as a fan is like Baker's probably a great guy to be around. He's probably fun to be in the locker room with, but you want to play for a winner. And Baker hasn't done that yet. Tom has, obviously, 7 Super Bowl rings, but I think the quote was probably taken a little bit out of context. I think there was some lighthearted back and forth between Baker and Tom on social media, no bad blood, but it was an interesting back and forth on the broadcast that I think fans enjoyed. So I want to stick close to home here on Tom again. Another podcast incident, well, not incident, but appearance was Billy O'Brien going on Julian Edelman's show.
Oh,
and so, great. Yeah, Billy O's great. He's now the head coach of the Boston College Eagles, who are playing great this year. I think they're top 25. But Billy O on the podcast was talking about that infamous interaction between Tom and him on the sideline where, Billy O was pretty much telling him to shut the F up, and Tom was throwing it right back at him. And I know you were right there on the sideline. So after this kind of went viral on Julian's podcast, I'm curious to hear your perspective sitting right next to Tom and Billy O during that moment.
It was great because I was listening to it in the car and I was literally like laughing in tears, having him tell his side of the story and reliving it, because it was one of those things where you talk about ultimate competitor. It was a close game. Tyquan Underwood, who's now helping coach the Patriots receivers, he didn't run a great route. Tom threw the ball. It wasn't a great ball. It was kind of like one of those things like we both made a poor play. And Ty had only been there for a little bit, and in true Tom nature, he's letting him have it. And I think Billy O was kind of like, just shut the fuck up. And Tom kind of, I'll never forget this. He kind of looked back, was like, did you really just say that to me? And then he was like, no, you shut the F up. And they went back and forth. There was water bottles being thrown. I remember Chad O'Shea was our receiver coach, and it was cold that day. One of the water bottles that someone spiked, I can't remember if it was Tom or Billy, spikes on the ground, and it ricochets right off of like your ankle bone, like, that little inside ankle bone. And Chad O'Shea's like, what the, shit. Like, it was total chaos. But as Julian said, like 2 seconds later, they're sitting there going over the plays because, as Billy put it, like the Redskins are in position to drive and make this an overtime game, and it's like, okay, we got it all out. We got to get past it and be ready to go on because we might have to go back out there. And oddly enough, they mentioned it. Jerod makes the interception, I think, at the end of that game to kind of solidify it. But all was good after that. But it was just I remember having one of those big coats and just trying to shield the two of them. I had like wings out with like this big coat and just being like, all right, that's enough. And I was just, I mean, that was my second year in the league. I'm trying to break up a fight between my coach and Tom Brady. And it was kind of just like, all right, just box Billy out. Tom's on the bench. Use my wings from my huge coat to kind of separate them. And then all of a sudden the switch turned and they're like, all right, let's go over the place and getting ready for that next drive. So it kind of just shows like that environment. You talk about stressful environment. You had to have it out. They got it out, and then they move on and get ready to go in case we have to go back out on offense that game. But it was great for me to hear it from Billy's perspective because we used to have some great times, the three of us, because we called Billy the teapot because he never knew. We always said he was kind of at a simmer, and then it would go. And we had this teapot. We kind of made it like the Stanley Cup. So anytime he'd have an incident, we'd write it on there like Billy O, sideline, Redskins. One time he lost his shit. I was talking to our film guy down in New England, Jared Rita. I saw him the other day. I said, remember when Billy O, we were out in Denver, we're having our meeting, the quarterback meeting, and the lights, they had like auto lights. They kept going off. He's like, who the F is turning the lights off? Jared, get your ass down. And it was like, Tom and I are like, Billy, it's so we'll figure out the lights. Like, but he just had this teapot mentality. And after last year, was it, I don't know what it was. Oh, Tom was back here for the ringing the bell, and Billy was here, and I get a picture from the two of them, and it was him and Billy holding up the teapot. They found it somewhere, like in a back room closet somewhere. So somewhere, someone has that teapot with all the different incidents. But it was pretty fun for me to hear it from Billy's perspective.
Yeah, it was a funny and interesting scene. And Jules talked about on the show, Tom played a little bit better when he was fired up and jacked up like that. So from your perspective, did the coaches actually do that to Tom purposefully to not that time, but were there ever times where they tried to fire Tom up so he could go out there on the field and play harder?
I don't think I ever witnessed it. I think that's Julian's take because he'd be over there saying, "You're too old. You're too old." Like that was Julian. I think Julian played better when he was angry, so he wanted to make sure everyone else was angry around him. Because honestly, I played a lot of games with Tom as his backup, and probably the most incredible game I ever witnessed was the Philadelphia Super Bowl. And I'll never forget his calmness, how locked in he was. Remember that movie For Love of the Game with Kevin Costner? He's like cleared the mechanism. He comes over. He's kind of not really. And Tom would come over after each drive, and Josh would be going over the pictures, and Tom would he wouldn't even really say anything. He would just nod his head and just put his head down. It was one of those moments where I was watching like For Love of the Game in real life, like a guy who was so locked in. I remember hitting a wheel route to Danny Amendola that it really isn't even part of the read. And I remember watching, because I'm playing the game in my head, and I'm like, oh, I think the ball should. Whoa, where's he throwing it? And they had just happened to double someone. Danny cut loose, and it was like one of those things where if we had practiced that play 100 times, I don't know if he threw it to Danny once, but it was just one of those things where he was seeing it so well. I mean, set a Super Bowl record for passing yards, an incredible game. And I know we didn't come out on top, but I just remember sitting there witnessing. And usually we had conversation on the sidelines, and I was like, there's nothing to be said. Like, he's so dialed in, and it was cool for me to be a part of that. But there was no one trying to make him angry that day. So
makes sense. That makes sense. And then so now switching to week 4 in the NFL and current day, the Kansas City Chiefs look a lot like the Patriots from the days we're talking about in our glory days, where they're playing all right football, but they're 4-0. They've played good teams, and they've won one-possession games. They won 17-10 over the Chargers this weekend. Patrick Mahomes is not playing to the standard of Patrick Mahomes that we all know, and they're starting to win games a lot like the Patriots used to. And as a fan, now I hate the Chiefs, and I understand why other fan bases hated the Patriots and our fan base and our players so much for the last 2 decades, because we squeak out these games like that where, we're not playing great football, but we're winning football games. So it's interesting to see. But yeah, your take on the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you because when I played for the Patriots, everyone would be like, I hate I'm like, why do you hate the Patriots? I mean, and now I realize that when they're constantly winning and they have this continuity, I think that's the big thing that I realize is, yeah, they're not playing great, but what they've been able to do with one quarterback and one head coach year after year, and then build a team around them. Because really, if you look at it, their defense is playing much better, at least last year and this year, than it ever was. It was kind of Mahomes carrying them, and now the defense is carrying them a little bit while the offense figures it out. And potentially losing Rashee Rice, I know that, and to add insult to injury by your own
ACL.
quarterback. I mean,
Yeah.
that's going to be tough to overcome, especially when you're trying to find that identity as an offense. But I kind of look at it the same way. Like probably, when the Patriots struggled and people were wondering if that was the end of the dynasty, and they go on to win 3 more Super Bowls. I think you're watching it and saying, at least my gut feeling is they'll figure it out. I mean, they
Mm.
have Andy Reid, they got Mahomes, they got a lot of guys who've played. And I think when you establish that culture, and there's people in, people out every single year, but when you have that core foundation of the players who are running the culture, they're gonna figure it out. And that doesn't mean a Super Bowl every year, but what you saw with the Patriots, like you had Bill, you had Tom, you had a core foundation of players, and yes, people came and went, but there was a standard that you set for yourself, and the players ran that culture. I think that's what you're seeing in Kansas City, and it's also, I think, when you get a taste of like that championship level culture, no one's going back. So if someone comes in who's new, they better get on the train, or they're going to get off real quick. And I think that's what you see in Kansas City. And so yeah, they're 4-0. They haven't hit their stride, even close to hitting their stride offensively, but they're 4-0. And I remember Bill always saying, who you are as a football team, it really matters after Thanksgiving. So as long as you're going into Thanksgiving in contention and you figure out who you are, that's when the teams separate themselves. So that's a scary thing to think about. If the Chiefs can get to Thanksgiving and still be winning the AFC West, be number one seed, and all of a sudden they hit their stride offensively, it's going to be a scary team to deal with.
Yeah, and people forget they didn't have a great regular season last year. They were
Hmm.
10-7, I think, and then they went into the playoffs, and they won a Super Bowl for the second year in a row. And do you think that three-peat, that very, very rare three-peat in the NFL, is possible this year for Kansas City?
Yeah, I think so. I think anytime you get to the playoffs, especially with a team of that, call it experience. I know, experience doesn't mean anything in the playoffs, because Bill would lay it out every year we go to the playoffs. He's like, listen, experience my ass. Like, here's a team. They haven't had any players who've really had any playoff experience, and they went out and kicked this team's ass. So experience only goes so far, but I think it's more about culture than it is experience. And I think if the Chiefs get to that point, the same way they had that run last year, everyone kind of had written them off. But it's a different mode when you get to the playoffs, and people know how to lock in, and they teach the young guys how to lock in. And it is kind of a mindset, like you're taking a deep dive, and you're hoping with the mentality you're going to go 4 extra weeks and go to the Super Bowl, and to have the guys who are in those key positions be able to teach the other guys that, I think that really goes a long way. And you saw it last year.
Hmm. So now flipping over to the NFC, the only other 4-0 team in the NFL right now, the Minnesota Vikings, your Minnesota Vikings. You talked about them on the podcast, not because you played for them, but talked about them last week, how you believe in them, right? They were 3-0, and we weren't sure if Sam Darnold was really it yet, and he continued to have an unbelievable week. I think they went up 28-0 over the Packers. They ended up only squeaking it out 31-29 over Green Bay, because Jordan Love woke up in the second half, but they are for real. Darnold had 275 yards, 3 touchdowns. He leads the NFL in touchdown passes, and they look really, really good. So what'd you see out of the Vikings as they move to 4-0?
Yeah, I think so much with the NFL is time and place. And I look at them, and I look at, Kevin O'Connell, what is this, his third, fourth year as a head coach. He's learned a lot on the job. They bring in Brian Flores, who's one of the best defensive coordinators in the league, and he brings in a few of his own guys, a la Steph Gilmore, Van Ginkel, to go along with already pretty solid core of defensive players they have. And you bring a quarterback in who, has never really had the opportunity to play on a good team. I mean, let's just call it what it is.
For
As a
sure.
starting quarterback, he's never had that opportunity. He's always been very talented. That's why he was drafted high by the Jets. And I think it's one of those perfect timing, perfect place things so far. It's only 4 weeks, but every game they've played has kind of been pretty consistent of how. And I know, Jordan Love coming off an injury kind of shook off some rust, and they made it interesting, but they have a formula with what they have going on right now that will win games past Thanksgiving and on, into the playoffs. And so I think, is that if they can continue to build, you don't want to be one of these fast start teams that hits a lull. So continue to build, keep getting better each week. add some wrinkles to the offense. I know B Flow will keep that defense, with what they've done so far. And I think, my prediction, I would hold it true, especially after seeing the 49ers play the Patriots this past week. I think Kyle gets it figured out. Now it's a little worrisome that McCaffrey, now it's both Achilles. He's in Germany. I mean, who knows? But it really hasn't affected them very much. Jordan Mason doing a
Looks
tremendous
awesome.
job. Debo is back. I think, when those guys get healthy, if they do get McCaffrey back, it makes it even more scary than what they are. So I'll stick with that NFC title game prediction. And I know the Bills took one on the chin, and Lamar and the Ravens, obviously, when Derrick Henry's running 80-yard touchdowns, that doesn't help. But I think in the AFC, it's going to be those three teams probably would have come down to Buffalo, Baltimore, Kansas City. That's just how it's been the past few years, and they have the continuity to do it. So,
Yeah, Vikings Niners would be an interesting game. I mean, obviously Sam Darnold was the backup in San Francisco last year behind Brock Purdy, who was the guy, and that probably went a long way towards his development this year, just learning from
100%.
Kyle Shanahan in that offense and getting more comfortable because, like you said, he wasn't on great teams before that. So
Yeah.
he's definitely a more than capable NFL quarterback, and he's showing it in Minnesota this year. So it'll be interesting. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for the quick snap this week. Everyone watching, thank you. Like wherever you're watching, leave a comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, Hoyt.
Yeah, I wanted to mention one more thing because when I did the Boston Globe Summit last week with
Yeah.
Kayvon, he was kind of asking like, "How's this going?" And I do want to say, like, if there's things that people want to see, hear,
Mhm.
et cetera, like, write them. I don't know how that works, Danny. That's up to you to find those in the comments, whatever it may be. But
For
this
sure.
is an ever evolving show, and we have kind of a dynamic, but it can go any way you want. And so if there's, you want to hear more stories, or you want to hear one of my buddies, my lawyer friend Mike Kendall said, "Hey, what about getting together and breaking down like one key play in the game, you and David on the whiteboard?" And so just suggestions like that, I think, go a long way because we can take this. We're not bound by a TV station and anything like that. We can kind of do what we want to do, and I think that's important to get out to fans and at least give that insight.
100%. That's a good point. And yeah, where you can do it, leave a YouTube comment, DM us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, whatever it is. We want to hear
X.
from you guys. Yeah, X now, formerly Twitter. We want to hear from you guys and help make the show as good as it can be because I think it's super unique. There's nothing ever been like this in Boston sports media with current players and recently and doing a show right now talking about inside access to, the Patriots. So definitely leave those comments and we'll look forward to next week.